Thank you very much. My name is John Takei. I'm a Fremont resident in Warm Springs. Thank you for this opportunity to address both the City Council and the Education Board. I'd like to express my concern and dismay at the way the City Council seems to be approaching the proposed stadium in Warm Springs, particularly in its apparent acceptance that a stadium is going to be to the benefit of both Fremont residents as well as the businesses. I wholly hope that the school board takes a look at the proposal as it exists from the A's, since the complete proposal has not been released yet with respect to the Warm Springs location. But at least with respect to Pacific Commons and by extension Warm Springs, I hope that the school board evaluates the proposal and comes to the conclusion that a stadium is not in the interest of the city, let alone the schools, and particularly Wybell Elementary. Having a stadium located just a half mile or so from Wybell Elementary will be disastrous for the school. You can imagine what 32,000 fans traveling to and from the stadium, particularly when there is no BART extension planned to be completed before the proposed stadium is actually in operation, is going to have upon school operations, both during the day and in the evenings during, for example, PTA evenings, open house evenings, and so forth, considering there are only two main avenues of approach to the Warm Springs proposal, the South Grimmer and Osgood Road. Additionally, I hope that the Education Board considers the economic impact that the proposed stadium might have upon the budget, given that the stadium in and of itself is going to require city resources to support in both police, fire, and utilities. And if the Pacific Commons Ballpark Village plan goes forward, the idea of having 2,900 additional housing units with the attendant students population will be significant. The early 2007 ERA report from the A's predicts only a little over 600 students for 2,900 housing units, but recent census polls have indicated that Fremont has approximately 43% of its households have children under the age of 18. So the notion that we may only have 600 students for almost 3,000 residents is, I would submit, a very bad assumption. Numerous other assumptions made in the report are similarly flawed, and I hope that the City Council and the school board takes the opportunity to fully review and analyze all the details, question the assumptions, particularly as the company that prepared the report has in the past been demonstrated to have inaccurate assumptions. For example, my understanding is they prepared the report for Yankee Stadium, and we know Yankee Stadium is not doing very well right now in terms of its development costs. So I appreciate the opportunity. I hope that both the school board and the City Council takes the opportunity to, not in a quick or expedited manner, review the concept of a stadium, but really roll up their sleeves, dig down, and look carefully at the numbers, carefully consider the impact upon the residents of Fremont, both the residents at large and the residents in Warm Springs, and reaches the correct conclusion that a stadium will not be good for Fremont. Thank you.
Vinnie Bacon. And it's interesting that we have both the budget and the A's on the agenda tonight. I'm sure we'll hear that our schools are experiencing significant budgetary problems. Given that, I question whether our schools could handle the 3,200 new homes that the A's project would bring us. Can our schools afford this additional load of students? An analysis needs to be done to determine the economic effect of the A's on our school system. Will the $10 million in development fees be a one-time fee? Will these fees be used to build the elementary school that has been proposed? How much will that school cost? How much will it cost to administer the new school, and how much in ongoing fees will be raised by the project? And does this differ from other housing in Fremont, since this housing would be in a redevelopment zone? We have to have answers to these questions before even considering the A's. We cannot sacrifice the quality of our schools just to get a ballpark in Fremont. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Russ Engel. I've been a resident here in Fremont since 1988, I believe. and I want to speak briefly on both the budget crisis and also the stadium. First of all, on the budget crisis, this is probably, as I'm sure the council is aware, the school district has about a $25 million budget shortfall, and you guys have a big shortfall. And I want to see you guys work together as a team and figure out if there's any kind of synergies or ways that you can help each other to try and mitigate or solve some of your problems. I've been to these meetings many years ago in the past, and they were kind of like a show. And, you know, things were on the agenda, and decisions weren't really made and all that. And I think now we're in a crisis situation, so I want to see the leadership pull together and, you know, do what's right for the city. Okay? Number one. The other thing was, recently I noticed that as far as the A's, there was a council member who was on TV talking in local media, kind of promoting the stadium, saying it's going to happen and things like that. I don't think that's appropriate. You haven't even gotten the documentation that you're supposed to be studying to make the decision to see what's in the best interest of the city, okay? And there was another person who went to a mayoral conference who was promoting the stadium. I mean, you're out there promoting a project. We don't even have the final EIR, okay? The data is not in. You have a community that I used to live in Wybell, that, you know, my son went there for 7 years to school. The impact you just cannot imagine on that community. That ballpark would be so close to that elementary school. Basically, for 83 ball games a year, they would be cut off from their school, cut off from the shopping on the west side of 680. I went to a meeting where Keith Wolf said, oh, don't worry about it. We'll have retired police officers, and they're going to cordon off the streets. Okay? How would you like to live in a neighborhood where 83 times a year you're like cordoned off? You have to have like an ID card or a sticker on your car to be allowed down Grimmer Boulevard. Does this make sense? No. If you're going to have a stadium, put it in Pacific Commons. Put the pressure on the big box stores. Baseball is an all-American sport, okay? Costco, as far as I'm concerned, you know, they're anti-American. They're not supporting the American pastime, baseball. Costco, Kohl's, and the other one, Lowe's, all right? If you really want the stadium here, put it in Pacific Commons, and you, Mr. Mayor, you should fly up to the Costco headquarters in Washington, D.C., and you go to the CEO's office, and you sit there until they meet with you and talk to you, and you explain it, and you can get it done in Pacific Commons. You see what I'm saying? But not Wybell. I'll tell you just a quick story, and the time will be up. Many years ago, my wife worked for Sun Microsystems, and the way that company got put on the map is Scott McNeely, the founding CEO. He tried to get a contract from Kodak. He was rejected. He flew to Rochester, New York. He sat in the guy's office. He wouldn't even talk to him. Until the end of the day, the guy was leaving to go home at 6 o'clock at night, and he finally said, okay, Scott, you know, I'll talk to you. And he talked to the other CEO, convinced him. They got the contract and put Sun on the map. Okay? Because that's what's stopping it. It's not the local managers of those three big boxes. It's the corporate offices. I think you owe it to the city to go to each of those corporate headquarters and you have meetings with those executives. Because I think that their concerns are not really valid. I mean, as a Costco shopper, I love Costco. If I know there's a game on Saturday, I shop on Sunday. They're not going to lose money. Okay? Thank you.